What's going on? Welcome back to the channel. So today we're going to talk to you about Opendoor. I want to go over some of the data points, break it down what's really moving it, and go over everything else you need to know. But first, make sure to hit that thumbs up. And with that, let's get right to it. So Opendoor did go down 2.3%, 739 the low, 776 the high, and 87 million shares being traded. So today was overall not the greatest day for the market. You did have a little bit of back and forth. So you had some optimism between the States and China. So these are some of the Chinese actions that the deal kind of includes. And this was announced on a side note on Sunday morning. And then this is some of the American ones. So in general, the market was fairly optimistic with this. And then a couple hours after, we had Trump pretty much saying that they're going to be blocking China from accessing NVIDIA's most advanced semiconductor chips. So very back and forth, and the market doesn't like that. Even aside from that, over the weekend, you did have some signs of cracking again coming from the consumer side, as well as even technically lenders. And so this one right here, another subprime auto lender, stops originating loans. And so even though this doesn't directly affect Opendoor, it does kind of signal just what's happening with consumers. And this is kind of as well what Powell recently did mention. So a lot of fear in the market. But despite that fear, you did have Opendoor really holding up fairly well. We've seen it get hit quite hard on days like this. So that does really signal that there's a certain level of optimism as far as their upcoming earnings, which is slated for the 6th after hours. There hasn't really been any change since my weekend video, so analysts haven't changed a lot of their estimates, no new analyst ratings. So now everyone is just kind of waiting just to see what is coming next. There hasn't been any news from Opendoor today, no SEC filings, no speculative topics coming out from Kaz, from Eric, or any of the other big names. So it was just largely piggybacking off the broader market. One thing I did see some individuals really speculating on was this. So Robinhood did announce a partnership with Sage Home Loans. And so I think generally, even still right now, people assume that there's going to be a big partnership between Opendoor and Robinhood. And most likely that's going to be for kind of tokenizing the real assets. Because if you think about it, Robinhood doing this deal and this partnership, I feel like it kind of does overlap a little bit with Opendoor, because Opendoor does already offer loans and mortgages. So I don't really see this being that crazy of a catalyst that a lot of Opendoor investors are really alluding to. But I do believe that there is going to be a partnership between Robinhood and Opendoor down the line. So once Robinhood gets more regulatory approval for kind of tokenizing real assets, then this is where I feel like something with Opendoor will be on the table. But nonetheless, I did see a lot of people kind of talking about this in regards to Opendoor and what that means. So just wanted to kind of share that with you. Aside from that, looking at shorts, they did increase 140,000 shares, 21.98% of the free floats being shorted, works out to be 155.9 million shares overall being shorted. Cost to borrow average is 1.21%, so kind of what it has been over the last couple of trading days. Short score is 66.6, and then through iBuyer it does indicate about 8.6 million shares is available to be shorted. So at the end of the day, I don't really see, at least in the short term, shorts doing all that much, possibly dependent on how their earnings do play out. Then shorts might double down or triple down, but honestly, I do feel, just given the venue of what Opendoor is doing, I do feel it's kind of obvious that Opendoor is very optimistic and bullish on their earnings. Or else why would they be doing this big out of the box type of unveil for their earnings? And plus, Kaz gave a lot of Easter eggs over the last 2 weeks that their earnings is going to be pretty good. So they gave a lot of big kind of future plans a little bit, or at least alluded to. So I think the big thing for Opendoor, as I've mentioned, the market might not care so much about the key metrics because of the CEO transition, but what they give for future guidance, that one will be the big deal for Opendoor. Aside from that, 10 million in calls, 2.6 in puts, 11.82% is that expected move based on the options, and that does work out to be almost like a dollar move in either direction. So interestingly enough, you actually see it getting more and more tame, and so the less volatile might be kind of a good thing in some cases, I guess. From a bull standpoint, you do see a consensus for it to be kind of between that $8.50 to $9 range by the end of this Friday. Bears are anticipating for it to be sub $6.50 to $7. So you have a little bit more upside, but there is a certain level of hesitation, of course. These are some of the transactions that did occur on the secondary market above $100,000. So he had some big ones, 4.3 million, but not that much in overall buying. These are some of the transactions that did occur on the dark pool. So big one for today was 1.5 million and then 496. So this kind of does match with the overall lower volume for today, with it closing at 759. It is trading between this pivot and this S1. So I'm looking at the 1-day chart on a side note. So 790 is going to be the next strong target / resistance. And most likely earnings is either going to put it above this pivot point or break it below this S1. It's going to cause one of those. So potentially we could have it kind of on the trajectory for it to go back to that $10 range or just really break it down. But I do feel if we get between this S2 and this S1, so between that 657 and 576, then you'll probably see a fair amount of people kind of buying the dip, which honestly, I wouldn't mind buying it back at that stage. Last time I did buy was at, I think it was like 460 or 470. Aside from that though, on the actual chart itself, so you see it's still kind of flirting a little bit with that 10 and 50-day moving average. Luckily enough, it did hold up today. And so that's a very, very big deal for Opendoor. So most likely you will be seeing a very aggressive pinch. This is something I alluded to like over the last week. So you should be seeing a very aggressive pinch higher or potentially lower as that 10 and 50-day moving averages kind of do converge. Looking at the stochastic RSI, it is at 58, so a little bit more kind of neutral, not really overbought nor oversold. And looking at the market position for today, you see a lot more willing buyers despite it pulling back. So that's kind of a good thing on a side note. But I think no matter what, it's going to come down to companies putting out the earnings. That's the big deal. Oh, so far during this after hours, we do have Palantir and also him and hers putting out their earnings. So for the most part, from what I can see, it looks like Palantir is being interpreted as somewhat neutral. I'll pull this one up just so you can kind of see. So it is up, looks like post kind of flat. It's slightly green, but nonetheless, this one will be a big deal for a lot of growth stocks and speculative stocks going into tomorrow. So just watch for the outcome of this. But all in all, I do feel that Opendoor's upcoming earnings is going to be interpreted fairly in a positive way. So let me know your thoughts on Opendoor. Don't forget to hit that thumbs up and subscribe. I always greatly appreciate that. One final thing, pop over to my Patreon if you're looking for some solid buy signals on stocks, options, crypto. Put out daily day trades, numerous swing trades. Worthwhile to pop over there and check that out. With all that said, appreciate all of you watching.